The Retron 3 is a third-party console made by Hyperkin and designed for NES, Super NES, and Genesis games. We picked this one up at a swap meet for $30, but it was discounted from $60. The console itself works fairly well. Instead of the RF switch that banes most retro gamers today, it uses the standard composite RCA cables, which is great for most modern TVs that may not have an aerial. Or if you want, you can even use S-Video to hook it up to a computer monitor or projector screen. It uses a fairly standard transformer box, which is annoying if you have an overly stuffed surge protector, but it's acceptable. The Retron 3 uses a top-loading design with one slot for each of the cartridges. Each slot is a dust cover to keep out debris, which is a good choice. Playing games on the system works fine. All you have to do is load in a cartridge and select the correct input from the switch, then press the power button. We had a little trouble getting some games to read properly, but that's to be expected when you're working with technology that's almost 2 decades old. After a little bit of fiddling, you should be able to get most of your games to run on it. But the biggest problem with this system isn't even the system itself. It's the absolutely horrible built-in wireless controllers. The D-pad is one of the most dreadful things I've ever seen in a third-party controller. It's even worse than the Xbox 360 D-pad. All the buttons are clunky and the controller just feels really cheap in your hands. And worst of all, while it's laughingly described as a wireless controller, it's more akin to a TV remote that uses infrared technology. This means it has to be pointed directly at the console sensor for the system to respond, and there's a horrible latency of almost a half a second between when you push the button and it registers. And even then, you have to push really hard on the buttons to get it to do anything. Here I am trying to move around in Sonic 3.
So yeah, the controllers on this there's also a terrible latency.
That's what I was talking about.
Terrible latency, because it's freaking infrared.
But while this is the Retron 3's biggest detriment, it really isn't that big of a problem. Odds are, if you're in the market for something like this, you already have a good number of controllers lying around. So our suggestion is to put the wireless controllers in the trash where they belong, and just use your own controllers. After all, doesn't it just feel better playing a classic game with the original controller anyway?
Did you say ear rape?
The Retron 3 is a very good console for what it does. If one of your old systems decides to bite the dust and you can't find a replacement, or you have a huge collection of games but nothing to play it on, you may consider picking one of these up since it doesn't take up much space and it's essentially like getting 3 game systems in one. Our rating? 7 out of 10. Very good at what it does, but nothing we haven't seen before.